The coffee hit his coat before Emily Harper realized she was falling. The cup tipped forward, her fingers slipping against the smooth ceramic, and the dark liquid poured out in a slow, merciless arc. It splashed across the front of the man's jacket, dripping onto the polished wooden floor. The sound of shattering porcelain echoed through the cafe like a gunshot. Silence followed. Emily's heart slammed violently against her ribs. Oh my God, she whispered, then louder, panic cracking her voice. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She stood frozen, staring at the spreading stain, her mind racing through consequences. Anger, shouting, embarrassment, losing her friend's job, maybe even being thrown out herself. Her hands shook as she grabbed napkins from the counter. I'll pay for it, she rushed on. I promise. Please don't be upset. I wasn't paying attention. This is my first day covering a shift and... The man stood up slowly. Emily braced herself. Instead of anger, he looked down at his coat, then back at her, his expression calm. Almost amused. It's all right, he said gently. She blinked. What? It's just coffee, he repeated. No one's hurt. For a moment, Emily couldn't speak. She had been preparing for humiliation, not kindness. Not this quiet patience that made her feel even more flustered. I still ruined it, she said weakly. He smiled, not wide or dramatic, but sincere. I needed a new excuse to buy another coat. Her shoulders sagged with relief, and she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That's really nice of you, she said, handing him napkins. I'm Emily. James, he replied, taking them. And I promise, this will be the most exciting thing that happens to me today. She laughed softly before she could stop herself. That laugh, unplanned, unguarded, was the moment James Carter felt something shift inside him. 2 hours earlier, Emily had been asleep in her small apartment, wrapped in a blanket that was thinner than it should have been for early winter. Her alarm hadn't even gone off when her phone buzzed against the nightstand. She squinted at the screen. Lily calling. Emily answered immediately. Hey, what's wrong? I'm sick, Lily said, her voice hoarse. Like really sick. Fever, chills, everything. I can't work today. Emily, please. Could you take my shift at the cafe? Just today. Emily stared at the ceiling, exhaustion settling into her bones. Today was supposed to be her only morning off this week. The one chance to sleep, to reset, to pretend she wasn't always one emergency away from falling behind. But Lily sounded miserable. Okay, Emily said quietly. I'll take it. You're a lifesaver, Lily breathed. I owe you. Emily ended the call and sat up slowly. Responsibility had a way of finding her even when she was asleep. She dressed quickly, pulled her hair into a loose ponytail, and grabbed her coat. Outside, the sky was heavy and gray. Rain clung to the air, misting her face as she walked to the bus stop. The city felt tired, like it hadn't quite decided whether to wake up yet. The cafe sat on the corner of a narrow street downtown, its warm lights glowing invitingly through wide glass windows. It smelled like coffee and sugar and something comforting she couldn't name. Emily tied on her apron, nerves fluttering in her stomach. Just don't mess up, she whispered to herself. The morning rush didn't give her time to think. Orders piled up quickly. Cups lined the counter. The espresso machine hissed and steamed, impatient and loud. Emily moved fast, trying to remember which drink belonged to which customer, determined not to let Lily down. And then the door opened again. James Carter stepped inside, shaking rain from his coat. He paused for a moment, letting the warmth settle over him. This cafe wasn't on his usual route, but that was the point. No one here knew him. No one cared about his last name. He ordered a coffee and chose a corner table, one with a clear view of the room but enough distance to remain unnoticed. His phone buzzed almost immediately. A message from his mother. Dinner tonight. We need to talk. James sighed and locked the screen. He already knew what the conversation would be about. Marriage. Expectations. A list of suitable women who would fit neatly into a life he wasn't sure he wanted anymore. Here, at least, he could breathe. Behind the counter, Emily balanced a tray with 2 cups of coffee, her focus split between the drinks and the slick floor near the sink. She stepped too quickly, and everything went wrong. Back in the present, Emily handed James a fresh cup of coffee, this time moving slowly, carefully. "This one's on the house," she said. James raised an eyebrow. "I don't think I can accept that." "You have to," she insisted. "For emotional damages." He laughed. "In that case, I suppose I have no choice." Their fingers brushed briefly as he took the cup, and Emily felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. She pulled her hand back quickly, hoping he hadn't noticed. James noticed. The cafe gradually grew quieter. The rush faded. Rain tapped gently against the windows, turning the world outside into a blur of gray and silver. James stayed longer than he planned, sipping his coffee slowly, watching Emily move behind the counter. She worked with quiet determination, apologizing when she made small mistakes, smiling at customers like she truly cared whether their day improved even a little. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't pretending. And James realized how rare that was. When he finally stood to leave, he slipped a folded receipt onto the counter beneath his cup. Emily didn't see it right away. She was busy wiping tables, her thoughts still replaying the spill, the kindness, the way his smile had felt unexpectedly comforting. She found the note later. "Some accidents are meant to happen. Thank you for today." She stared at the words, a soft smile forming on her lips. Outside, James paused beneath the cafe's awning, rain falling steadily around him. He glanced back through the glass and saw Emily laughing quietly with another customer, unaware that she had just collided, quite literally, with a man who was searching for something real without even knowing how to ask for it. It had only been a cup of coffee, but it was already more than that. James Carter returned to the cafe the very next morning. He told himself it was coincidence, that he simply liked the coffee, that the quiet corner table helped him think. But as he stepped inside and scanned the room, his eyes searched instinctively for one person. Emily. She stood behind the counter, her hair tied back, sleeves rolled slightly as she laughed at something an older woman had said. The sound caught James off guard. It was light, genuine, untouched by expectation. Something in his chest eased. "Good morning," he said when he reached the counter. Emily looked up, surprised. Then she smiled, softer this time, like she recognized him not just as a customer but as a moment she hadn't forgotten. "You survived," she said. "Barely," he replied. "I had to explain to my coat why it was sacrificed." She laughed again. "I'm still really sorry." "Don't be," he said. "I came back hoping for another accident." She shook her head. "You're brave." He ordered the same coffee as yesterday, and when she handed it to him, there was no spill this time, only a brief pause, a shared glance that lingered a second longer than necessary. That became their quiet routine. James came every morning, always around the same time, always ordered the same drink. Emily began to recognize the rhythm of his presence the way people recognize a favorite song. Comforting. Familiar. They talked in small moments at first. Comments about the weather, jokes about customers who ordered impossibly complicated drinks. Slowly, the conversations grew longer, deeper. Emily told him about her life in pieces. How she worked 2 jobs. How she was saving for night classes. How she worried about falling behind while everyone else seemed to move forward effortlessly. James listened. Really listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer solutions she hadn't asked for. He simply stayed present, and that alone made her feel lighter. In return, he shared carefully chosen fragments of his own life. He spoke about pressure without naming its source. About expectations that felt like walls slowly closing in. About wanting something real in a world that constantly demanded performance. Emily understood more than he expected her to. "I think people confuse success with happiness," she said one morning, wiping the counter absent-mindedly. "But they're not the same thing." James felt those words settle somewhere deep. One evening after a late shift, he offered to walk her home. "It's not far," she said, hesitant. "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm offering." The streetlights cast a warm glow over the quiet sidewalk. Their steps fell into an easy rhythm. At one point, the wind picked up, and without thinking, James draped his coat over Emily's shoulders. "You'll freeze," she protested. "I'll survive," he said, smiling. Their hands brushed as they walked. Neither of them pulled away. Emily had begun to look forward to him more than she wanted to admit. She caught herself wondering if he'd come in on days he was late. She noticed the way he watched her when he thought she wasn't looking, like he was memorizing something fragile. James, meanwhile, was unraveling. Every conversation with Emily felt honest in a way nothing else in his life did. She didn't ask about his car, his job, his family. She didn't try to impress him or mold herself into something she thought he wanted. She was just herself. And that terrified him, because the truth loomed closer every day. The headlines had started circulating again. Articles speculating about his future, about potential marriages, about which suitable woman would finally claim the role his family expected him to fill. Emily saw one of those headlines by accident. She was waiting for the bus when a large screen lit up across the street. Scrolling through business news, a familiar face appeared. James. Her heart skipped. The caption beneath the image froze her in place. Billionaire heir James Carter faces pressure to settle down. The world seemed to tilt. She read the words again. And again. Her chest tightened as understanding crashed over her. The quiet man who drank coffee in the corner. The gentle smile. The simplicity. It all made sense now. Too much sense. James didn't come to the cafe the next morning. Or the next. Emily told herself she didn't care. That she had imagined something that was never real. That she had been foolish to believe a man like him could ever be just James. When he finally returned, the relief she felt quickly turned to hurt. She kept her distance. Her smiles were polite, not warm. Her words clipped. James noticed immediately. "Did I do something?" he asked softly when the cafe was nearly empty. Emily's hands stilled on the counter. She didn't look at him. "I know who you are," she said. Silence stretched between them. James exhaled slowly. "I wanted to tell you. But you didn't," she said, finally meeting his eyes. "You let me believe you were someone else." "I let you believe I was just a man," he said quietly. "Because that's who I wanted to be with you." Her voice wavered. Was this some kind of experiment? To see how normal people fall for you? "No," he said firmly. "It was the first time in years someone looked at me without expectation. I didn't want to lose that." Tears burned her eyes. "You already did." She walked away before he could stop her. James didn't chase her. Instead, he made a choice. That evening, he sat across from his family and said the words he had been avoiding for years. "I'm not marrying for appearances," he said calmly. "And I won't be introduced to anyone else." Shock followed. Anger. Disappointment. He stood his ground. The next morning, James returned to the cafe before it opened. He left a letter on the counter. Handwritten, unguarded. Emily found it hours later. "I should have trusted you with the truth. I was afraid you'd see the name before the man. But all I ever wanted was for you to see me. I don't need a wife chosen for me. I just need someone who chooses me, knowing everything." Her hands trembled as she folded the paper. That evening, she went back to the cafe after closing. James was there, waiting. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said softly. "I just couldn't walk away without being honest." Emily searched his face. The sincerity. The vulnerability. "I was hurt," she said. "But I was also scared. Of feeling something real." He nodded. "So was I." They stood there, surrounded by the quiet hum of a place that had changed everything. "I don't want promises," she said. "Or pressure." "Neither do I," he replied. She took a step closer. "Just honesty." "You have it," he said. When they walked out of the cafe together, there was no grand gesture. No declarations shouted into the night. Just two people choosing to move forward. Slowly, honestly, together. And for the first time that felt like more than enough.